welcome to Crossing Darkness, a podcast about the role-playing games set in the world of darkness and other tabletop games. We're broadcasting over Twitch every Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time, and are open to chatting with fans during the show. This is Season 3, Episode 5, Werewolf the Apocalypse Part 2. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout, and my co-host is Motorori, who helped me create a podcast and a 40-person, 4-table Gen Con event. How's it going, Moto?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty relaxing weekend, as it always is.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. Definitely enjoy my weekends. I'm happy to be one of the people that has a weekend on Saturday and Sunday that I actually have off of work, which not everybody is privy to in this universe. So I feel lucky.
I can very much agree with that. It's very nice.
All right, so for those that maybe have missed part 1 or jumping into part 2 here, really quickly, what is Werewolf the Apocalypse?
Oh, is that a question for me?
Yep.
Well, it's a role-playing game made by White Wolf back in the 90s. I can't remember if it was their second one after Vampire or the third one. But in it, you play werewolves who, rather than being the beasts who stalk the night and kill villagers, as many people now know them because of that Are You a Werewolf game, you are warriors for Gaia. You essentially take on the role of eco-terrorists. And you fight the worm, which is, just listen to the previous episode. I'm pretty sure we went into it.
But yeah, I mean, real quickly, that sounds like a good, that's a baseline of what the game is there. All right, so we are.
Where did we
left
leave
off on the Silver Fangs was the next clan or tribe that we were going to jump into. So the Silver Fangs, from my point of view, they're the leaders of the werewolf tribes, but they're also the most inbred and kind of royalty aspected werewolves that I really don't like the Silver Fangs at all. I'm more Bonar, so of course I would hate on the alpha most. I in fact like them less than I like the Shadow Lords. I don't think that the Shadow Lords should become the alphas, but I don't think the Silver Fangs should be the alphas either. So
yeah,
and they have a lot of problems with inbreeding. So
yeah, so the whole thing behind the Silver Fangs is they have that mentality of they rule by right of blood, which is very reminiscent of pretty much any monarchical system from Europe, Russia, many parts of the world. It's what are the Ventru from the vampires are very similar,
right?
And so when you play a Silver Fang, you are supposed to be egotistical. You are supposed to look down on everybody. I want to say the only time that I ever played a game where somebody played a Silver Fang, it was pretty much the first long-term World of Darkness game that I played in, run by my now lifelong friend Dave, and his girlfriend at the time, now his wife, played a Silver Fang. And now, don't get me wrong, she's one of the greatest human beings in the world, but it was really easy for her to play a Silver Fang, let me tell you. She just constantly insulting everybody, constantly being, just like, you're stupid, stuff like that. She was in charge. She didn't play every single game though. She was definitely the girlfriend is here and give her something to do. Although she did a great job. But yeah, Silver Fangs, originally from Russia, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I
I
believe
think.
so. Or at least
Yeah,
that's where they are now. For like huge chunk of them control a large chunk of Russia before Baba Yaga came back and did a whole bunch of crazy stuff.
yeah, and I know there's a bunch of lore about. Is it Albrecht? Is he's a Silver Fang in the United States who's kind of like in charge of Garou society
Hmm.
here in the U.S. And I think there's some stories about that. I can't remember what book I read that in, but
But yeah, that's yeah. From my understanding, that is correct. That there's like the alpha of all of the werewolves, and he is it's like rank 6, I think, too. Is
yeah,
like
that
the
sounds right.
gets into like the concepts that there are higher ranks than 5, although standardly in a game you'd only go 1 to 5.
Yeah, I mean it would be extremely rare for a GM to even want their players to get to rank 6 for Werewolf.
Right.
Uh, I mean, you can do it. It just would be out of context, really, because at that point you would have to be like the political leader of thousands of Garu.
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
But yeah, they're an interesting group. I mean, I hate on them a lot because I have such an affinity for the Bone Gnars, but you can play them in, they're the strong leadership type kind of characters, but they can be, strong warriors and just, they don't always have to be the alphas and stuff like that. We're just being very stereotypical right now on them, of course. Um,
yeah. In the Gen Con game, the 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 Silver Fang that I created was, I think, Talia Wilford, and she was actually friends with the Bone Gnars. Like she was kind of anti-typical uh, for for Silver Fangs.
mhm. Yeah, I remember that
She was
character. I
still
liked her.
she was still rich and egotistical and looked down on everybody, but I tried to write her in such a way that it made sense for her to be in Madison and part of Garu society here.
Mhm. All right, shall we move on to the next one?
Sure. Oh, am I supposed to do that?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead with that one.
Yeah. So the Uktena, one of the two remaining tribes from the native peoples of the Americas, mostly from South America, but I think they kind of crept up after the destruction of the Croatan. Um, the main thing about the Uktena is that they deal with death. Uh, I'm not sure I've ever actually read their splat book to the extent that I should have, but yeah, they are more aligned with what I would call the untainted worm, because I have all these ideas about what the worm actually is and why corruption is associated with it. But yeah, their tribe totem is a water serpent, which is classically a worm spirit. Um, do you know anything about the Uktena that you want to add
Not
in?
not really. I'm not very familiar with their group. Besides that, I knew that they're more involved with death and that they might have connections to Shadowlands in the Wraith and stuff, but very light connections. And like you said, that they do have more, um, you know, not necessarily worm, but they have worm adjacent connections.
Yeah, and I definitely have to look into them because I'm working on this Wraith game, and I'm trying to think of all the different ways that living beings can cross the shroud and interact with the dead, and I'm pretty sure the Uktena is gonna jump in there.
Yeah. All right, so let's go on to I believe the last, or second to the last one we have is the Wendigo.
Okay, yeah. So Wendigo is a lot easier for people in North America to understand because that's where they're based. Uh, Wendigo is uh, the tribe is descended from the native peoples of North America, mostly Canada, because as we know, the Croatan were kind of the general geographical area of the United States, and they were wiped out uh, in order to destroy. Oh God, who was it?
Yeah, it was one of the worm like powerful manifestations of the worm itself. Like,
Was it Storm Eater? Something
yeah,
like that.
something. So yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
and in order to defeat that worm creature, they had to sacrifice their entire tribe. That's why there are no Croatan left. But the Wendigo are kind of your more northern natives. And in fact, I played in the most recent mage game that my friend Charles ran for us. Uh, a Wendigo kinfolk who became a mage, and in that game, my sister was a werewolf, and everybody liked my sister better than me because she was a werewolf, and that was a big deal. Um, but anyway, Wendigo is a cannibal spirit, so there's kind of a stigma for Wendigo that when they go crazy, if they frenzy, they will sometimes eat human flesh. Uh,
Interesting. Yeah, for some reason I never made that connection.
yeah, Wendigo is the cannibal spirit. It's
Yeah.
also just a very powerful combat tribe totem. Um, uh, One of the things that I learned from the Wendigo book, because I did read most of that in preparation for that game. Uh, there is still a lot of racism in the Wendigo tribe. Uh, I can't remember what the words they used were, but driving all of the white people into the sea or back to the sea is like one of their long-term goals. Like just getting all the white people out of North America. And that can be a fun like thing to play around with in a game. Um, Probably not going to happen unless you're a really strange GM who's like, you know what, I'm going to run a chronicle where the Wendigo win and just murder or drive out every single white person from North America.
Hey, I could see running a one shot on it. Um, so let's go on to what is now the Beast Court's werewolf tribe that used to be part of the regular group of werewolf tribes that kind of defected in, I believe this is around 1999 or so, 1997. Um, that the Stargazers, which were one of my favorite tribes, was the more eastern based guru, and they ended up I can't remember exactly the exact specific reasons for it, but they end up leaving the werewolf tribes and joining the beast courts that are all the other shapeshifters, because a lot of the game focuses on werewolves, right? But there's actually a lot of other creatures, so there's tigers and bears and um,
Where coyotes, where foxes, where snakes. Uh, Let me see here.
and basically there's the
Where
war
birds.
of rage that the werewolves went out and killed most of these tribes off, except in the eastern hemisphere of our world, they preserved themselves and created the beast courts. Um, and that kind of has where werewolf is very much eastern Western philosophy. The beast courts represent a more. It's not just the werewolves; it's all the other groups, and the werewolves don't hold, any special spot, if I remember correctly, in the beast courts at all. They're just another group.
I think to an extent, I think the Japanese werewolves, the Haken, do interact with the beast courts.
Yeah.
But they're very isolated. The Haken are not associated with um, the so-called Garu Nation.
And the Stargazers also eventually leave and become, fully part of the Beast Courts and leave the Guru Nation.
Yeah. So the Stargazers are basically from Tibet. They are Himalayan Buddhist monks. And actually, the most fun thing about the Stargazers is one of their things is called Kailin Do, which is a shape changer specific. That's a good kitty you got there. If you're only listening to this as a podcast, go watch the video on Twitch to look at Josh's adorable cat. I think that's Leia.
Yep.
Where's Janeway?
Janeway is in her castle, hiding.
Janeway doesn't like the camera, does she?
Oh, she don't mind it. She just is sleeping.
But Leia's always up on your lap during stream.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so Kailin Do is a martial art that is only for shape changers, because if you have control over your shape changing ability enough, you can. And the werewolf rule books actually go into like the difficulties of shape changing just certain parts of your body, and it's usually pointed out as a way to use it as a storytelling device, or a way around, causing the delirium. So like, a werewolf in its human form can't do aggravated damage with its with your fingernails, right? But if you can turn just your hand into a werewolf paw with claws, then you can do aggravated damage with your, spiritually charged werewolf claws. And so there's rules for changing smaller parts of your body. Kailin Do takes that to the next level, where you're constantly doing that to multiple parts of your body, to like I can't remember what one of the okay, so because a werewolf body has more mass, it's going to be harder to get through like small gaps. So somebody skilled in Kailin Do could theoretically like jump through a small crack in a window by jumping in werewolf form, to get those like strength and dex bonuses. In midair, turn into Hamid, and then once they get through, turn back into full werewolf. Or Kailin Do, if you're using a weapon, you could theoretically, grasp a bow staff with human hands while still being in werewolf form. I'm not sure what that would entirely do, but
well, it allows you to,
yeah,
use tools as a werewolf, which is huge, actually. Because aggravated claws
I always
seem to melt through most items that you try and grapple.
Yeah. I always just thought that Kailin Do was just a really cool idea. And it makes sense, because they're Buddhist monks, martial arts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was always fascinated by the Stargazers, and I was really sad when I heard, but also understood why they would leave the Guru Nation. So let's go ahead and go to the Black Spiral Dancers, formerly known as the White Howlers. So these are your worm tainted, your worm tainted tribe, basically. Black Spiral Dancers usually have to go through a ritual of walking the spiral in order to become a werewolf or a Black Spiral Dancer, and they kind of rip their soul inside out, if I remember correctly. Or is that just Nefandi that do the ripping of their soul inside out?
I mean, that sounds like an Nefandi thing, but and here's a good question: do you have my copy of Chronicles of the Black Labyrinth?
I believe I do. I'll have to double check.
Okay, it's either you or Charles that has it, and oh man, there was some cool shit in that book. So the thing is, the White Howlers were a Scottish-based tribe before they became Black Spiral Dancers. Another thing in the werewolf mythos is the coloration and patterning of your fur is kind of like indicative of certain different things. And if I remember correctly, the White Howlers were generally purely white fur. And the story goes that they decided to basically walk down into the spiral to fight the worm, and they didn't come back. They turned into Black Spiral Dancers instead. The thing that always confused me about that, like, origin mythos is that most of those werewolves, those Black Spiral Dancers, by now would be pretty much dead, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So most of the Black Spiral Dancers you see today are not former White Howlers.
Correct.
They are corrupted werewolves from the various tribes. So I guess that's just me complaining that they pushed that mythos in and then never explained how, like, the new Black Spiral Dancers are mostly from other tribes. You know, you just gotta kind of figure that out on your own. Although some of the older Black Spiral Dancers could
Well,
theoretically still be from White Howlers.
well, you could still also. I mean, it's still a genetic thing. They still just because they're Black Spiral Dancer doesn't mean they can't go out and rape and pillage and create more of their kind. It's just that when a White Howler, is created, they're immediately a Black Spiral Dancer. Is the way that I kind of took it, was that you could also, just like you can join any tribe, you're born into one, but you can join any tribe that you want. And it's possible that some of these lost cubs are actually, that they're finding out they're actually Black Spiral Dancer, or White Howler cubs that join with another group. Because there's no, like, from my understanding, there's no exact thing on the genetics of, there's no weakness or something that's tied into your genetics of werewolf. It's all about what tribe you are and stuff like that.
Yeah. But also remember that being a werewolf isn't necessarily a genetic thing, it's a spiritual thing.
That too, yeah.
Like the werewolf mythos basically throws in this idea that there's almost a spiritual genetics
Right.
that werewolves are basically susceptible to. There's when a child is born to two kinfolk, there's no genetic marker that says they're going to become a werewolf. There might be a spiritual marker. And so that's another reason, like, in the Gen Con game, I made the child of Gaia a gay werewolf, and him and his who was he married to? He was married to one of the mages.
Yeah, the Dream Speaker mage.
Yeah, and they were working with another werewolf to figure out how to, like, figure out werewolf genetics, and I never really followed that thread too much. But maybe they would have figured out the spiritual aspect of it and been like, oh, we need to figure out spirit genetics.
Yeah.
Which now I've created, and
all right.
I'm never going to work out.
So I didn't really research into any of these. I kind of poked into them, but do you know anything about these independent tribes? It looks like they're all kind of offshoots of the different groups.
I did read earlier the. Oh God, Charles is going to kick my ass. Well, he knows that I can't pronounce Chinese words correctly. Uh, the Boli Zuhise, Chinese offshoot of the Glasswalkers. Uh, so basically, Glasswalkers in China. I think the reason that they might have written this particular group is because China was very isolated, as was Japan, and that was the the reasoning behind the Haken.
Mm-hmm.
You know, China and Japan were very isolated from the West up until the opening. Uh, and in fact, in the Bully Zuhis, um, wiki page here, they talk about how uh, when Hong Kong was offered to the British as a port, uh, they they basically all just moved into Hong Kong because they were like, this is the new thing. This is, people stuff is happening here, and they moved in there, and that's where they've been. And of course, it doesn't mention anything about what happened when. Or wait, no, it does. They suffered with the handover of Hong Kong to the Chinese government. Beijing attacked the triads, which many Boli-Zuhis were affiliated with, and their primary cairn was destabilized by the death of its elder.
Hmm.
It's so. I mean, if you take the current state of the Chinese government to its logical conclusion, there are probably not many werewolves in the Chinese government. Uh,
Mm.
in fact, I would say there are none.
Yeah, I would
Um,
agree with that. I think China's a completely different world when it comes to the world of darkness. Like there's so much of a difference and so much of a thing that you gotta take into account. And you have to remember that it is a fictional world based on a bunch of Western people. So um,
yeah, that kind of brings up the subject of there has been controversy about people putting certain spins on the world of darkness, and I'm not going to bring those up now. We've discussed that we're not going to discuss that. Um, but there are probably people in the U.S. who have a lot of knowledge about China, and they could definitely run a game that kind of explores what the world of darkness is like in China, maybe from a Western perspective, maybe from a Chinese perspective. Um, and then on top of that, with the the current media landscape, I find it really interesting that as RPGs and the world of darkness especially move into other cultures, like we're going to see some really interesting stories in the world of darkness created by people from other cultures, China included, that once they get translated are going to be some pretty awesome things that have a lot of insight into those places and their history.
yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, for sure. So let's go ahead and move on here to the last little bit about the extinct tribes. So we've kind of already talked about the Croatan, but then there's the the Bunyip, uh, Bun Bunyip.
Bunyip. Bunyip.
So these are your, I believe these are your Australian um, werewolves.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
not exactly werewolves. Um, or thylacines. Tasmanian tigers, which
Oh,
are extinct.
yeah. Yeah, interesting group here. I don't know much about them, and there's like this whole special thing about Australia in the world of darkness, actually. Um, but they're definitely something that I would suggest taking a look into. Um, They're just one of those like you can kind of seed in a bunch of weird stuff about them. For example, like in one of the apocalyptic scenarios, they reveal that they did not possess the spiritual half of other guru, and were only able to recreate the animal and the human nature of the bunyip, um, and lacking the spiritual bits filled in by the worm spirits that noticed his experiment. These bunyip call themselves the Hollow Walkers, forced their father to walk the black spiral and join them. So there's like a whole, other, black spiral tribe that is created out of them, basically, in one of the apocalyptic scenarios.
Yeah, now that I'm kind of skimming the article, I realize that I never really touched on the bunyip. I know in the most recent mage game that I played in, we did go to Australia and mess around there for a while, but yeah, this never really came up.
Yeah, it's a small part of, but an interesting part of the werewolf history.
Yeah, I will say though, um, I've watched a lot of television, well, at least a good handful of television from Australia, and their cultural paradigm in relation to Aboriginal peoples, which are the kinfolk of the bunyip. I could see some really interesting games coming out of you know the Australian cultural paradigm in the world of darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. Then there's already weird stuff all about. Australia is just a really weird place in the world of darkness, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
everything kills you. The middle of it is damn near impossible to survive in. There's that big fucking rock in the middle of it that's just like a big old round rock sticking out of the middle of nowhere, which I'm pretty sure is a thing in the world of darkness.
it's an alien ship, I bet, in the real world. Don't
You can
get me
pretty much
into
do
aliens,
anything you want with it.
though. So that brings us, I think, then to an end here on Werewolf the Apocalypse. Um, and one of the things we're going to kind of talk about, I think, next is our Technogate game that we finished up season 1 of last Monday. This Monday at 7 p.m. we are going to be doing an after party for that, and just kind of prepping and getting ready for season 2. Season 1 primarily dealt with the characters trying to hunt down and destroy Muddin, a Nefandi that was um, had dealings with the end of the world. Basically, was working to make the end of the world even worse, and kind of empower a bunch of demons um, during the apocalypse, or the 1999 Ravenos awakening scenario. Um, and so we've kind of brought that to a conclusion now. What do you think of season 1? Did you have fun?
Yes. Let's start with yes, I had fun. Um Before I get into the content of the game, I would just like to comment on streaming a game. This is the first time that I have done it, and I think that you have done it as well,
Yeah,
right?
no, this is the first time I definitely streamed a tabletop game.
Yeah. Um, and I'm just remembering. So I am one of the luckiest people in the gaming world that I have two separate gaming families. Uh, and in addition to that, my gaming family that isn't you, we are currently actually, because of the pandemic, playing twice a week. Because we don't have to, get up and go to another person's house anymore. It's just, it's we use Google Meet now. It's just, you got to be on audio, and that's it. So we play Friday nights and Tuesday nights. And a few years ago, it was actually like 5 years ago now, around the time that Critical Role was starting to like pick up, we thought about streaming games. And the thing that kind of pulled us back from it was we didn't want people to like know about us. We didn't want to be celebrities. We are the kind of people that are not comfortable with overacting. We're the kind of people that are not comfortable with advertising, selling out, stuff like that. But that being said, I also know you. So
the complete opposite of
yeah, a little bit. And I'm not super open to it, but like we've had discussions where it's like what I want out of this is I want people to recognize me at Gen Con every once in a while. And that's pretty much it. And maybe just like people know who I am a teensy tiny bit. Like I'm not gonna be an actor on a TV show. That's not my thing. But yeah, so in terms of how is the game going, I think we did pretty good. I think there was a lot of learning that we had to do. I'm still not. Have you heard the quote? I doubt your commitment to sparkle motion.
Yeah.
Which is from the movie Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, like, because I've been working with you on a lot of this stuff, and I am there on time every week, and some of the other players are like rolling in at 7:15. And I'm just like, I have to hold back that.
Like, you're not dedicating yourself to sparkle vision.
Yeah, I have to remind myself that like we're doing this for fun. None of us is trying to like get rich off of playing games online. This is just like, our goals here are not astronomical in terms of fandom or anything. So our production quality isn't huge. So I have to kind of hold myself back and understand that I could be doing more too.
Well, I think what this is, heavily in the experimental stage for all of this. I mean, for us is that we don't really have people that we know in our lives that are doing this kind of stuff to mentor us into this at all. We just kind of jumped into the ocean deep and said, I wonder if I can swim, and we drowned for a little while here and there. We did really well here and there, surviving, and then we are where we're at right now, which I think that now we're at a point where we can start moving into more production value, and really getting into that kind of sense of trying to make it more, like you said, more dedication to a certain degree. But in the end, it really is just about for me about this is just I like having fun, and I kind of have always dreamed about having my own company, and this is a way of substituting my hobby, basically. I've always loved storytelling. I've always wanted to run games at Gen Con, and this all of this that I'm doing is basically just to enhance that, and then possibly other ideas that I have of making my own games and stuff. But basically, all I want to do is just run events at Gen Con, and this just kind of supports that whole system. So
yeah, I think I remember when we first started doing the Gen Con game stuff. I think I wrote it down somewhere that like my goal was I want to go to lots of gaming conventions. Like that's if I can somehow make enough money off of what I do at the gaming conventions, I can go to more of them.
Right.
and
Yeah,
that would be like the greatest thing.
yep, and
Uh,
that's just yeah, exactly. That's my kind of goal is that make it so not necessarily that I get paid to go to conventions, but at least it's I have some a subsidy that's coming to me um, through doing. Although to a degree, it's also cost me a bunch more money to do this, but
whatever. We got jobs.
yeah,
Uh,
that's the
and
beautiful
that's
part about it.
pretty much what it is in the gaming industry. Almost everybody that works for, you know, Onyx Path that we've met, you know,
They all have
has another
another
job.
job. Yeah, absolutely. Don't quit your day job is a solid thing in the gaming industry. Whether it's video games and or like anywhere depends on it depends on what you're doing. Some art assets, people, stuff like that. But usually their day job is not just stuck on one project. They have multiple, or if they do, they're getting good pay. I wish I was an artist. I really do. That was one of the
Yeah,
skills I never picked up in my life, and I'm just too lazy.
I don't have the patience. Um, but yeah, so back to yeah, the game. Um, the way I'm going to explain this is I think maybe I've told you about this before, and maybe I've kind of been holding back on it. There is a Facebook group where you can post like, "Hey, I'm doing this live act or this actual play of World of Darkness games," and I see a lot of stuff go by. I don't really check them out, but I know they're there, and I keep thinking to myself like, "Oh man, would I be comfortable putting up a link to Technogate?" And on the one hand, I would say no because I don't feel like we're quite there yet. But on the other hand, I do have to remind myself that it's like we're all just fans of a mythos. We're just gamers. If I'm watching a streamed game of some sort, I'm gonna forgive most of the flubs, the things that could be better. I'm gonna note them, but I'm not gonna like be like, oh, these guys suck. It's like, no, these guys are trying some shit. Good for them. And so I look forward to trying to get that game out there to more people. Do some advertising on Facebook, and not necessarily advertising, but just like posting it to those groups and such.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, because I will tell you this, I don't see a lot of technocracy games going past me in my feed. I don't see a lot of mage games. Mage is hard to get into. Uh,
I was really happy that our first streamed game was Mage, just because it's one of the harder games to get into. But I feel like in the long run, it's a beautiful game. I love GMing for Mage. It's always going to be the first game that I'm gonna jump to whenever anybody's like, "What game do you want to GM?" I'm gonna jump to be like, "Okay, I want to do Mage the Ascension."
yeah. And not only do not many people play Mage the Ascension, but not many people play Technocrats. I think I found one other stream, and I think they did like a mini series. There's like 4 episodes. Um, so I'm pretty excited where this is going. Uh, I feel like at this point, I can see playing this game into the future indefinitely. Like it's just gonna keep going, but I know that that's not possible, right? But what I'm hoping is that as we add other things like that Wraith game, uh, as people drop off of the radar, other people come in, like it's something is going to happen where we say, okay, it's time to stop the Technogate game, not because it fell apart, but because we either don't have time for it because other shit is happening, or it turns into something else. Just something like that.
Oh, I do think that it does have the possibility of being just a forever game of checking out the world of darkness, in all aspects of the world of darkness to a certain degree, especially, traveling to different realities and stuff like that. But you could go kind of all over the place with this game. This definitely is not going to have the epic arc of like normally what I like to do is like a 5 year or a 5 season, concept for a game, and just have that nice rise and fall of your chronicle and how it, how what's all going on, and having that third season be that big huge, this is when all this stuff goes down, and then you get to see the aftermath in 4 and 5. And just I liked that kind of concept, but but this one is more episodic, where I just wanted it to continue on that kind of level. Um, but we'll see. I definitely think that there's a possibility of maybe not ending it, but rebooting it is probably going to be something that I might do every 5 years or something like that, and just go back to the beginning with a new drawing board, new concept, and maybe new crew. Like it won't be Technogate 42, it'll be Technogate 51 or whatever, and be different adventures for them that happened in 19, an alternate universe, so you can have whatever fun you want with it.
Or possibly a series of modules for a living campaign.
Yeah.
It's it fits the model perfectly. You can be any kind of technocrat, and you can go on missions for the Technogate command. Yeah, kind of fits the model for a living campaign.
Yeah. So definitely, definitely something we'll look into further down the road for sure. There's a lot of plans. I definitely want to bring it to Gen Con, and other conventions and stuff, and run games for it, at least just one shots, if not, you know, um, I like the idea of a living campaign. Possibly, we might work on something like that. That's all something that's in the future. But we're gonna finish up season one, which we're done really with season one. We're just gonna do an after party this Monday. And then we're going to start up season two, and season two is going to kind of be a reboot where I'm going to try and not really have any major storylines kind of going. We'll still probably have something to deal with, the concept that there's still the looming concept of nobody knows what's going to happen after 1999. Um, but I think that the majority of season two is just going to focus on character development and one-shot episodes of going to different places in the Umbra and checking them out, and having just a very classic um, episodic game that kind of just checks out all the different aspects of the world of darkness, and or the different areas of the Umbra, and expanding and looking into those things and parallel universes and stuff like that, and just a fun game.
Oh, there are a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover, so I don't think we'll run out of material anytime soon. Um, all right, so before we head out here, I just want to give a couple shout outs to a couple podcasts that are out there that really inspired me to want to make my own podcast for the world of darkness, such as Midnight Express, Utility Muffin Labs, Darker Days Radios, and Gehenna Gaming all have some really great stuff out there that you can kind of check out on podcast websites out there. Definitely want to give a big shout out to the people who made these games, Onyx Path and White Wolf. They are really interesting companies that make some really great games, and that's basically a lot of what we talk about on this podcast here, is the games that they have created. Print on demand, one of the best places to get that from is DriveThruRPG. It's where I buy pretty much all my books at this point if I don't get it at uh, half price books, which I do a lot of shopping there. So, so shout out for them too, because actually don't go there. Don't go there because you're taking my books.
Yeah. Every single one of these books is from Half Price Books. I think the most recent count is 300.
Check out some cool things that that are out there, like Seventh Age novels created by Rick Hines, as well as the Red Opera RPG that kind of meshes heavy metal and Dungeons and Dragons together. We'll be going to a lot of the conventions that are going on in 2021 and 2022, such as GaryCon, Midwinter, Origins, Gen Con, and GameholeCon, as long as those as long as they're open. We'll probably be there virtually if they're, almost all of these are doing a virtual aspect if they're not going to be in person. So, and if you enjoyed our podcast, definitely feel free to follow us and like us. We also post this on Twitch, YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Do all the, press all the buttons, whatever. I don't care. Don't if you don't feel like it.
Are you even on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram. I have a bunch of kitten photos on Instagram.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna follow you on Instagram.
Well, yeah, because that's.
How do I follow you on Instagram?
Golden Age Stories. Look me up. We'll be there. We got a bunch of kittens.
I don't know. I'm not sure I really want to download Instagram onto my phone.
I don't know if you do either. I just did it because one of the Twitch things that I had that showed like follow us on this or whatever. I was just like, fine, whatever, I'll do it. Join this weird thing, and I'm just gonna post kitten pictures because I love kitten pictures. It's all about pictures, right? So if there's any questions for us before we wrap up here, but I think that we are going to wrap it on up and head on out, and we'll be doing our game on Monday, and we'll be back next Sunday with a whole new topic.
Do we know what that topic is going to be?
Not at this time. I have some ideas, but we did not discuss specifically what we're going to be doing next podcast, but we will have more teasers for you coming up as we better prepare our podcast.
See, that's what we need from the viewers on Twitch is suggestions for what to talk about.
Yeah. If anybody does have any suggestions, definitely hit us up. Always. Last suggestion that we did have was Wraith, and I think we tried to immediately fulfill that request. And we'll try to do so if you do have any requests. So we're not just locked into the world of darkness either. We're open to talking about any kind of role-playing games, and we might pop in and start doing some of those as well. But I think that some of what we're gonna do in the future is definitely going to be, going over some of the more obscure things in the world of darkness, such as mummies and changelings and demons. Oh my,
I think I have never cracked a demon book, so I got to get that pretty soon here.
Yeah, demon's interesting. Definitely not exactly what I had anticipated when I read Demon. So. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it on up for us tonight. Well, thank you all for watching, and this is Frozen Fallout signing off.
And I'm Moto Rory. Good night.